We just have a couple problems left on that review that I gave you. The biggest thing that I would study are the ones that are the release ones that look like this. Is everybody good with that? Make sure you study those. Um, Make sure you study completing the square and transformations. That's pretty heavy on there. I'm going to go over this with you real fast. These are the test specifications so that you guys will know what you're looking at. So this table 2 is what I'm going to look at right here for NC Math 3. Number and quantity and algebra is 32 to 36 and functions are 32 to 36. So if you guys think about those two, those are the ones where we're basically putting them into Desmos. So majority of your tests, you're going to use Desmos for. Does everybody understand that? So all of those f of x and g of x, those are all functions. Anything y equals, that's a function. Number and quantity and algebra, that's solving for those things, finding the zeros. So factoring, completing the square, all of that is in there. 20 to 24 is geometry. That's your circles, any kind of triangles, anything like that. And then the last part is that stats and probability. And the only stats and probability that you've really dealt with are like the mean, like the normal curve. You guys know what I'm talking about, where we did the percentages. So make sure you know those percentages and that the mean is in the middle and then the standard deviations go to the outside. Know those percentages. But again, it's only 8 to 12% of your test. So if we look at it this way, about 20 questions. It's a 60 question test, okay? It's 50 with 10 field test items, and I'll get to that in a minute. So about 20 questions are in there. Somewhere between 12 and 15 questions will be geometry. And then 12. The max is like 5 to 6 questions on statistics and probability. So again, statistics and probability, again, most of that is from Math 1. Just review that curve and you should be okay. All right. Any questions on how many questions you're going to have or whatever? Okay, so those are your breakdowns. And again, if you go back, y'all, I would suggest that at least on Monday, try to look back over those reviews that I gave you, since you're going to have the long weekend and it's going to be crappy to come in and take that exam on Tuesday with no review session. Okay, is everybody good? All right. So then again, you guys will have 50 questions that actually count towards your score. 10, you won't know what 10 it is. You have no idea. I have no idea. That are just field tests to see if that's questions that they would put on the next version of the exam or something like that, for a total of 60 questions. You get 3 hours. That's about how much it takes, but you can have up to 4 hours. There we go. That's why our exams last so long, our session lasts so long. If you need extra time and the exam session has been called, you get extra time. So don't rush yourself, okay? Those of you that are in here, you will not stay in here while they finish that. Does that make sense? Everybody got that? So if you're still testing we're supposed to get out at like 11:30, and that's still still have more time to go, then you can have that time. So don't stress out about that at all. Everybody got it? All right, take your time. Calculator active, it's all calculator active. That's what it's telling you. 50 questions of calculator active, no inactive, for a total of 50. The other 10 that are on there are also calculator active. So your graph paper that you get is the normal graph paper. It's just a sheet of grid. You can use as much as you need. Y'all, if you don't, and I'm a spaz about stuff, if I make one grid, like one graph on that grid paper, I'll flip it over and do it on the other side. And if I don't like it or I don't have room, I'll just raise my hand and get another one. Get as much as you need. Also remember that you can graph on Desmos, and you can graph points on Desmos. So it makes it a little bit easier. Then you can do that. Your separate sheet of paper, you should not turn in an empty, like a blank extra paper. There's no way. All right. So if you're not writing anything down, don't be surprised when your scores come back. That's all I'm telling you. Okay. And I'm not trying to be mean about that, but there's no way I can't take the test without writing things down. Does that make sense? So, and I've been doing this for a million years. So there's no way that you should turn in a blank sheet of paper. All right. You'll get these calculators. They will be reset. There is nothing that I feel like you need to turn on. Okay. So math 1, they need to turn the stat diagnostics on. You guys will not. Good. I sent you an email this morning about where you are testing. You guys, sorry, I know it's going to be a blank screen for Zoomers, but I put it in our announcements. So I sent you an email and I put it in announcements, which also sends you an email, I think, notification. Minimize myself. There will be 2 testing locations, and the reason there are 2 testing locations is because of COVID. We want to make sure that you guys are spread out and everything is followed. Everybody should come for in-person exam testing. There is no remote testing for you guys. Okay, you have to be on campus to test. So math 3 will either be in 508, which is Mr. Jones' room, 2 doors down from mine, or it'll be in 17, which is Ms. Swing's room. So if you go all the way over and into that little quad by the trailer, y'all know what I'm talking about. When you're looking at the quad, there's a door left and right. That's Miss Reagan and Mr. Walter. And then Mr. Walter is in this one and Miss Swing is in this one. Okay, so if you're looking at it, it's the second door on the right in that quad straight in. And then there are your names up there if you need. Let me do that for Zoomers too. Let me share that screen. So stop sharing here. Share this screen real fast so you guys can see it again. Joseph, Portland, Priscilla, Nicole, Morgan, Neve, Skyly, Tessia, Brianna, Brian, Lily, and Gracie are all in 508. So Mr. Jones, Clay, Haley, Dylan, Hayden, Rachel, Carson, Davis, Jared, Anna, Natalie, Sean, and Aaron are in room 17. Okay, and you go straight there. You don't have to come here. Any questions about where you're at? If you forget, we'll have it. I'll try to email it again on Monday if I think about it, and I don't mean that in a bad way. If anybody forgets, just email me and ask me, and I'll help you out with that too. Okay, so if I forget to email it out on Monday, I'll try to remember to do that. Just remind me to email it out. All right. Any questions? Any questions about the exam period at all? It's going to start at 8:30. Usually they finish about 11:30. Okay. Since our time is back, we used to start at 8 and we would finish by 11:15, 11:30. That 11:30 may push to 12 just because we pushed our start time for school back. Okay. So just be aware of that. I think they're going to try to get them done by 11:30. And then, like I said, if you need extra time, you're good. So if you are on campus and you have an on-campus exam the next day, feel free to stay for the in-person review, but you had to sign up for that. Okay, if you haven't done it, you may want to talk to your teacher. If you have a remote exam, which is anything that is not a state exam, then you're free to leave after as long as you have a ride. Otherwise, I think you get to sit in the cafeteria until the buses run. Got it? So very good. Now, if you have a ride, and it doesn't really matter who your ride is, as long as you have a ride, you can get home whenever you need to. Got it? Any questions about that? Everybody good? All right. Let's go back. And let's go over our last few. On this review. One that I want to start, this number 5, Ms. Burkhart and I have taken a look at it and we think it's got missing information. I just pulled this offline. This is not anything that I made up. So I don't think you can solve this without one more piece of information. And if you can, it is absolutely ridiculous to solve it. So we're not going to try to do this one, so we can just mark out 5. If they would have gave you surface area or volume or anything to give you the radius, you would have been able to do this, but there is no way to find that radius at all. If that changes, I'll look at it again. And if that changes, I'll send out a video on it, but I don't think it's going to. All right, so I'm going to go to number 3. And it says a function is shown below. Circle the letters of all the statements that are true. So what I'm actually going to do is go to Desmos, share my regular screen. That is not what I wanted to do. There we go. Stop. Sorry, y'all. All right, we're gonna go to Desmos. And we're gonna type this function in. And again, I just use y equals negative x to the third. All of these are pretty much Desmos, so that's why I left them off so that we could do it all at one time. Plus 9x plus 45. So here's your function. This is what it'll look like if you put it in regular. You can zoom out if you want to and see what it does. It's not super important. It makes like little waves or whatever. So when we go back, it says as x approaches negative infinity. So remember that x is left and right. Negative infinity would be what? The left side, right? Okay, correct. I shouldn't use right. So x approaches infinity is the right side. X approaches negative infinity is the left side. So it says the left side goes to negative infinity. So let's look at the left side. You guys, I don't know if you can see my mouse on, I think you can, on Zoom. But over here, here's your left side. Does it go to negative infinity or positive infinity? Positive infinity. So if we're looking at our functions, if we're looking at our answers, it says negative infinity. So A is not going to be a choice. So B says as x approaches positive infinity. So that means the right side. So we're looking at x is left or right. Positive is to the right. So if we look at the right side of the graph, where does it point? Down to negative infinity, right? So B would be an answer choice. It says circle all of them, so don't stop there. Are there questions on your final exam that say select all that apply? Yes, there are. Okay. Usually they're like the drag and drop, just to let you know. Oh, also before your exam, you have to take that tutorial. I'm trying to get Thank you. Have a nice day. Sorry. Where was I going? Oh, you have to take the tutorial before. Let me explain something to you. The tutorial is just to get you used to like it doesn't matter if the answers are right or not. What they want to see is that you know the functions on the computer. So don't spend 20 years reading all the passage. That's just taking your exam time up. Does that make sense? So do what you want to. I'm not telling you to skip the tutorial. You have to do it. But like when it tells you to put an answer in, like a written type answer, you don't have to really answer the question, just and move on. Does that make sense? Okay, so sample questions are the same way. So the tutorial is not graded. It's just get you used to seeing any type of question that they may have. So technology enhanced where you drag and drop, one where you type in the answer, one where you highlight. It just is letting you know how to do that. The sample questions, again, are just getting you used to clicking the button. That's it. So don't spend 20 minutes on the tutorial and on the sample questions. Everybody understands? Just keep moving through that. You have taken, how many of you have taken an online exam before? Math 1, did you guys take the Math 1 exam online? No? You don't remember? Did you take the Math 2? Anything online? Did you take it online? It's the same, it's the same function. I know you did Math 1 online because we did the check-ins. Pretty sure you did it online. So all of that is the exact same. Okay, it's the exact same. So it's the same tutorial that you take every single year. All right. Part C says the function is decreasing where x is less than negative 4.07. So I'm going to put that in negative 4.07. So you guys can see that blue line that's on there. Which way would be less than? What would be less than that blue line? Yeah, to the left, right? So it says to the left of that blue line, the function is decreasing. Okay, we can't read backwards. Don't read backwards. Read it this way. Look at that function. If I start left to right, on the blue side of that line, is that function going down or is it going up? I'm gonna get up. Zoomers, you're not gonna be able to see this. So right here is your blue line. So we're just looking at this little piece of the graph. Is everybody good? So if I start from left to right, is this function increasing or decreasing? It is decreasing. Everybody see that? So that one is decreasing. So we're good there. Yes, it is decreasing. It also says where x is greater than 0.74. Oh, I don't know what I did. X equals 0.74. So that's the green line. If we look to the right of the green line, because we say greater than, is that graph decreasing? Yes. So C is also an answer choice. And we're done with that. And then look at D. It says the function has a relative minimum of about negative 0.407 and negative 704. So remember, minimum is your low point or your valley point. So that's right here. And what's really cool about Desmos is all you got to do is click on it. Sorry that I did that. Let me go a little bit closer so you guys can see it. And click on that point. And that point is negative 4.07 and negative 7.035. So does it have a minimum at approximately? Yes. So B, C, and D will work. Okay. So I'm going to go back to this. B, C, and D will work. Okay, I think we did all of the next page. All right. Let's look at 14 real fast. It says the equation 5 times 1/3 to the 3x minus 1 equals 10 is rewritten in the form of log BD equals C. Remember when we deal with logs, what are our 3 magic words? Left, right, middle. But what we need to do is get rid of this 5. That's what throws this off. So how can I get that 5 on the other side? Divide by 5. So I'm going to do that real quick. So I actually have 1/3 to the 3x minus 1 equals 2. To get it in log form, you use those magic words, left, right, middle, but we need to write the word log first. What's your leftmost number? 1/3. What's your rightmost number? And what's your middle? It says find B, D, and C. 1/3 is B, 2 is D, and C is 3x minus 1. And I'm getting that from right there. Nothing hard about that. Any questions? All right, let's look at 18. I will come back to 13. Look at 18. Which expression is equivalent to this? Remember, I told you anything that looks like this, equivalent, Desmos, 100% Desmos. So I'm going to drop back to that real fast, and I'm going to put these in. So our first function is x squared, and I'm going to put it in just like I see it, x squared plus 5x minus 19 divided by x squared plus 7x plus 8. So it looks like this, and then I'm going to start putting my answers in. So 1 plus parenthesis 12x minus 11 over parenthesis x to the second plus 7x plus 8. Is it the same? No. So moving on to the next one. The next one looks exactly the same. It's just a 1 minus. So I'm just going to change the minus. Y'all, please don't type everything in 50 million times. You can see the black line down at the bottom. Let me go home so you guys can see a little better. You guys see that there's a black and a blue line on there. Okay, so let's try the next one. It says 1 plus 2x plus 27 over x squared plus 7x plus 8. No good, right? So maybe it's 1 minus what happened. And remember, you can turn it off and on. Everybody good? All right. So your answer for that one would be D. All right. So let's look at 13 real quick. And I'm actually going to do 13 on paper so you can see it. All right. I hope I drew this right. So we'll see. All right. A cubic equation has a 0 at -2. That means it crosses at -2. All right. And 1/3. And a factor of x plus 1. If it has a factor of x plus 1, that means it has an answer of what? What kind of 1? Negative. Remember when we pull it outside, we change it. So it also crosses at -1. Very good. All right. It says it has a relative maximum at about -1.56. So we're going to say this is -1.5-ish. 1.4, somewhere there. So that means it does like this. Everybody understand that? And since it's cubic, remember, cubic is either going to look like this or it's going to look like this. This one would be a positive function. This one would be a negative. So this one is coming down, making a loop, and coming back up. Okay, everybody good? This is just a sketch. This is not the actual one. So is this a positive graph or a negative graph? So it's positive. What about our y-intercept? Where's our y-intercept going to be? That's that last number. Is it going to be a positive or a negative, our y-intercept? It's definitely going to be a negative. All right, so we have a lot to choose from, So how do we figure this out? How do we do this? What does zeros mean? Those are answers, right? Zeros are answers. So if this is a factor, but I got an answer from it, what can I do with the answers? Get what? Factors from it, right? And get factors from it. All right, so now I'm going to go to the sheet of paper. And I know that we have a 0 at x minus 2. So that means our factor is going to be plus 2. I have one at a positive 1/3. That means my factor is going to be negative 1/3. And I also have a factor of x plus 1. Very good. That means I'm going to multiply this out. So this one, let's move this 3 to the front so it makes it easier. Remember, slide and divide, we can move that to the front. I'm going to multiply these first. You can double distribute, you can box, whatever. X times 3x is 3x squared. X times -1 is -x. 2 times 3 is 6x, and 2 times -1 is -2. And then we still have to multiply it by x plus 1. All right. Distribute your x to everything. You can simplify this if you want to. I'm just going to go ahead and distribute it. I get 3x cubed minus x squared plus 6x squared minus 2x. Distribute your 1, 3x squared minus x plus 6x minus 2. And then clean it up. What are we going to start with? A 3x cubed. Is everybody good with that? So that means this is going to be your beginning. We have a negative x squared, a 6x squared, a 3x squared. So negative 1 plus 6 is 5, plus 3 is 8x squared, which is this one. We're going to keep moving on. We have a negative 2x minus x is negative 3x, plus 6 is a positive 3x. And then our last number is a negative 2. Any questions? So why did we have to graph it? What was the purpose of having to graph it? To see if it was positive or negative. That's the only reason we had to graph it. Is everybody good? Any questions? All right. We do not do anything like 17, so we're not doing that. Look at 19, sorry. All right, so 19 asks for the zeros of the functions. That's the solutions. If you guys look, we have a couple on there. I'm going to put this in my calculator for you so you can see it. Again, you can do this on Desmos. I'm just trying to keep it on the same screen. X to the 4th minus 2x to the 3rd plus x squared minus 8x minus 12. When I graph it, all it's going to give me is this negative 1. Okay, what do we have over here? Yeah, so there's a positive 3, right? So if we look at all of these, we have a negative 1, which they all have, and then we have a positive 3. These say negative 3. Is everybody good? So the question is, where do they get this last part? It's 4th root, or it's a quartic function, so it means we have to have 4 answers. Why don't we see the other 2 crossing the x-axis? Because they're imaginary. That's where the I comes from. That is going to be working it out. So here's what happens. When you have your solutions, make it easy on yourself. We're going to do synthetic. The solution actually goes in the box. So we're going to start with negative 1. We have 1x to the 4th, negative 2x cubed, 1x squared, negative 8x, and negative 12. Remember, if they skip 1, you got to put a 0 in there. This one did. Do your synthetic, bring down your 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Add it, it's negative 3. Times negative 1 is positive 3. Add it, I get 4. Times negative 1 is negative 4. I get negative 12. I multiply it, I get positive 12. Remember, if it's an answer, I should get a 0. That's why they're called zeros. Everybody understand that? So then I'm going to take these numbers, because I know that I also have an answer of 3, and just bring them down and do that with 3. So bring down your 1 times 3 is 3, which gives you a 0. That's fine. Times 3 is 0. Add it to 4. I get 4 times 3 is 12. It said it was a 0, so that's exactly what I should get. So how do you get the plus or minus 2 or 3i? Remember, we came down from x to the 4th. This would have been x cubed. So this is x squared, x, no x's. So what I have is x squared plus 4 left. You guys know how to do that. And it's a 0, so I set it equal to 0. How can I solve for x? Subtract 4. I get x squared equals negative 4. We take the square root. The negative is what causes the I. What's the square root of 4? 2. How many answers does the square root have? 2. A positive and a negative. So your answer has to be C. So anything with an I, you're going to have to work it out some way. It could be not Pythagorean theorem. It could be quadratic formula, or it could just be doing some synthetic division. So now if you look at 21, do I have any I's in here? No. So I can do that one straight on Desmos. So I'm going to go back to Desmos. And I'm going to put this function in, and I'm going to look at where it's at. So y equals 15x to the 4th. Again, check those functions after you put them in to make sure you didn't type anything wrong. 19x to the 3rd minus 54x squared minus 76x minus 24. All right. So how many solutions should we have? Look at it one more time. Look at your function, not your graph. What's your highest power? 4. All of your answers have 4 solutions, right? So what's kind of crazy is that it has that one in the middle. It has the hump, right? So watch this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You guys see it now? It actually goes above it. You just couldn't see it until you zoomed in. So there are my 4 solutions. We're going to start with this one is -2. The one on this side is +2. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Okay, so we know it's positive -2, so that eliminates C and D. And then we're going to look at these. And literally all you have to do is click on it. It gives you -0.67. So I'm going to write that down, -0. And it's 6 repeating, but 67. And then this one is -0.6 with no repeats. All right, so I'm going to go back to my paper right here. And we're going to look. They're both negative, right? Look at all your answers. The first one has a positive and a negative, so we know that's not right. The -2/3 is this one. You can put that in your calculator to test it, and this one is -3/5. So your answer is B. All right, we're not going to do 23. We're going to look at 25. We can look at 23 in just a minute. Let's go to 25. While we're doing this, it says if f of x is 2x squared minus 5x minus 12 and f of 4 equals 0, which statement is true? 2x plus 13 is a factor of f of x. 2x minus 13 is a factor of f of x. 2x plus 3 is a factor. And 2x minus 3 is a factor. So here's what they're saying. This right here is that x is 4. The reason they give you that, and you can do this without knowing that, you could just factor this completely, just factor it in general. But the reason they're giving you this is so that you can do your synthetic division. So I have 2, -5, and -12. Bring down my 2 times 4 is 8. Add it, I get 3 times 4 is 12, which should be a 0. So then how do I write this? We started with x squared. So we drop it down 1, and then it's a +3. So your answer should be C. How else could you do it? Like if this kind of screws you up and you're not sure why they give you that. How do I factor this if I have a number in front? I'm going to do slide and divide. Factors of -24 that add to -5 are -8 and +3. Don't forget to divide by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then we slide this 2 up. So which one is a factor? It doesn't matter. You don't need the other one. It's just eliminating this one. Does that make sense? All right. Now look at 23. Last one. Last one. I'll leave you alone and we'll take a breather. An empty cone-shaped container has a diameter of 5 inches at the top. The height of the container is 8 inches. James pours water into the container until the surface of the water is 2 inches below the top of the container. Okay. So you have a cone. It says it has a diameter of 5 inches. It says it has a height of 8 inches. He pours water into the container until the surface of the water is 2 inches below the top of the container. We'll worry about that in just a second, okay? Tell me how you find the volume of a cone. What is it? 1/3 big B H. What's that big B stand for? What's that big B stand for? In every formula, what does it stand for? On this one, it's power squared because it's the area of the base. Okay. Now, what it's saying is we're going to fill this up. We're going to fill this up till it is 2 inches from the top of the container. Very good. All right. So the first thing I want to do is find out the total volume, and then I'm going to take off that top volume that we're not using. Does everybody understand that? Okay. I don't need that top part. I just need the bottom to know how much. So we're going to start with the big cone. 1/3 pi. What's our radius? Be careful right here. What's our radius? Sorry, I'm looking at this for just a second. Our radius is 2.5 squared. Our height is 8. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in my calculator. I'm going to leave it in terms of pi to make it a little bit easier for me. So 1/3 2.5 squared times 8, math, enter, is 50/3. And I'm going to put the pi on there. All right, so we have the height of the smaller one. What we don't have is the radius. So we have the height is 2. To find the radius, you have to do a proportion. This one is a really crappy problem because of this right here. So if our proportion is 8/5, I'm going to do this over here to the side. The height to the diameter, so 8/5. We're going to do the height of the smaller one to the diameter of the smaller one. So remember, that's a diameter. We're going to cross multiply. We get 8x equals 10. Divide by 8. And x equals 5/4. 5/4 is 1.25. That's the diameter. So what would our radius be? How would I find that? Divide by 2, and I get 0.625. Okay, so plug it in. 1/3 0.625 times 2 squared times 2 gives me 25/96 pi. And then I'm going to subtract those. So alpha y equals, this one, like I said, this is why I made it last, 50/3 pi minus, what did I say, 25? Yeah, 25/96. What volume to the nearest hundredth? 51.54. Any questions? All right, so I am going to tell you, like on this review, all of the geometry that you see is probably going to be what you're going to get. That last one is a little bit harder. I haven't seen ones like that yet, but something like this, like number 1, you'll definitely get. These I've seen on there. Anything like this number 3, I've never really seen anything like number 4. That's not to say that it won't be on there. Or number 5. Number 7, we've seen that on the released version 7 through 10. So you probably will get something like this. I've seen questions like 11, but they don't have the fractional stuff. They have like really nice numbers for you guys. All right. I have seen things like 13. I have seen 14 where you rewrite. We've had one of those where we had to rewrite it or did inverses. Don't forget your inverses. How do you find an inverse? Just throwing this on there. We did this like once or twice on our final exam review. Remember, you switch X and Y and then solve for Y. So they'll have inverses. They'll have at least one question on inverses, if not 2. All right. They love to do transformations like number 15. Love transformations. The sine, cosine, and tangent questions that you get are usually the graph. So you can put those into Desmos. So don't freak out about that. You just got to be able to type it in. Everybody got it? All right. And then on the back, they will absolutely do questions like 19 through 22, 24, and 25. Those are those algebra questions that they're talking to you about. Everybody good? So any question that's like that, that is exactly what they're going to do. Don't freak out over the sine, cosine, tangent. Don't freak out over like the statistics stuff. There's only a couple questions on there, but what you do need to know is how to manipulate Desmos the way that you need it to. Everybody good? Please, please, please try really hard. Okay. You're in here anyway. I always say this. It'd be like me coming to work and just sitting here. That is so pointless. It's the most boring day ever. So if you will actually try on the exam and you will use what I've taught you Desmos wise, calculator wise, you guys will be fine. It's probably the easiest math exam you'll take, especially since you get to use calculator the whole time. Is everybody good? All right. Zoomers, I'm going to stop sharing, stop recording. You guys